You know what helps? If you do random streams, it helps if you actually start the stream on the YouTube side. The YouTube's going to get an hour of this content. Okay, so we're building a module here, right? I'm going to build it like this. Now, again, some of this comes from wanting to explore this idea because there was some advice given that said that everything should go in one project. I don't like that idea of putting everything in one project. So what Canny's talking about in terms of separation, in terms of organization, I think that gets a lot harder if you put everything in one project, like physically under here. And now having talked one line a little bit, I'm wondering if there's actually some misinterpretation of what we refer to as project, because I'm clearly referring to this as a project, but this is the solution in which many project files are added. So I might not be the only one blurring the lines, knowing what I mean, causing problems for people. So if we do, how do you do it? Endpoints. There you go. We post to that. Nope, you don't like that. Why don't you like that? Oh, because you don't have. I love how it does that, but because of the project, it knows the endpoint exists, but it doesn't know this. So we go back here to this. We can post to, is it? API host address. I'm not used to .NET Lang. I use Java turns there. Maybe we have some clashes with them. Yeah, possible. I don't know. Unable to find valid certification. JavaX. That's an interesting thing to see. Oh, because it's the Rider is built around Java, not around .NET. So it's actually Rider's. So why is that? Oh, because I'm doing that. That. Where's this running on? Helps if you use the right things. So it's on 7.203. 7.203. Some of the Java. There we go. Okay. We have a running API. That's all I wanted to confirm. Oh, well, let's not add class one, and class one. They can go in a minute. Include games module. Introduce. So, yes, I don't know why I'm going to push anywhere. Yes, I am using minimal API. I'm going to wrap some of the minimal API stuff there right now. There's no point in trying to make it overly complicated, introduce extra libraries, etc. So what I see and think, you have one solution SwitchUp that contains all projects, in your case, application and dots, and then you have a couple of packages like games application, etc. Well, what do we have here? Maybe. Hello, how you doing? So basically, I'm considering this a module, right? Even though it's multiple projects, these are .NET projects, right? This is what I'm considering a module. Pricing will be a module, etc. And they are being the API is being composed by adding the modules together. So the application behavior comes together that way. Now, I don't think it would, well, definitely no, we're not going to get to it today. Now, in terms of messaging, if games needs to share something with pricing or pricing needs to share something with games, that's that is what I'm considering a module. If you haven't checked out Maybe Stream, by the way, I highly recommend it. It's a great place to go and hang out. Maybe has recently deployed his his application, Barely Fit, which is a health and fitness tracker to help keep you accountable. You own all the data; it's on your device. It's not shared to servers, etc. Solving some of the problems he's had over the years of trying to use different apps. I would highly recommend checking it out, if not only for really cool bear pictures in the application. So, highly recommend. He also plays games at times. The more the way is fine. um. Okay, so we have a module. So games is going to be composed of multiple pieces here, right? Um, this is where it gets interesting. Um, nah, you won't. It's too good a place to hang out. This is where it gets interesting because we're going to explore a concept here. Also, oh dear. Let's do the thing. I started Docker. New solution folder. Aspire. I like having Aspire broken out. I don't know about anybody else, but I just don't like. I like it being separate from my code. I realize that it's code. I do realize that. I'm not oblivious to this fact, but yeah, I like having it as a separate piece. The benefit of using Aspire here is we can include a database and we can start to use those things quicker. So I've got Docker started. Everything's up and running in Docker. So now I'm going to add a reference to my API project, just the API project. So builder dot our project API API dot with name check out everything else afterwards. I think that's all we need really. Then we can change this Spire host. We can delete that one. We can use that one. And remove that one because I don't like that one anyway. Okay, so now when we run it, I think Aspire is a really great development tool. I am still trying to figure out if it can be used effectively for anything else. For deployment, they are focusing some energy on the deployment piece, but I've still yet to figure out what that means. So we have Aspire, we have the app running. There's the API. Did it add hotel already for everything? No. It's funny, it adds the settings, but it doesn't add the actual hotel. We can see the console logs here, so we can see the application starting up. We can stop it, etc. You can see our API graph. There is ways of labeling these. Aspire is best looked up, but Aspire in essence is basically a tool to help me organize and start the projects so that I can do logging and I can see statistics and stuff, track memory usage all within the app host. So if I add the service defaults, add the Aspire service defaults, Aspire, yeah, service defaults, um, now I don't need to do anything else, but in my API now, if I had a reference to service defaults, and then I go in here and say, dot, it's not use Aspire, add service defaults, and now run it. So from a development perspective, it's a good way of getting started in terms of setting up logging and tracing and all those sorts of tools. So if you see now, I'm still getting my head around what Aspire actually is and what it's intended to be. They do want it to be a deployment tool of sorts, so you can click in here and say, okay, now deploy to Kubernetes, etc. They're trying to make it an everything tool, which does concern me. So now this all looks the same, but if I go to console API, that's all the same, but now structured, I now have structured logging just by adding those things. So now I can go in here and I can see traces, I can do all sorts of stuff. So in traces, there's no traces, etc. And metrics, I can actually look at the memory, the requests, etc. So I can keep an eye on the performance during development. I can see garbage collections, so I can see if I'm, wasting memory, etc. All within the app. So it's a kind of an everything tool, but definitely useful. Okay, so let's stop that running for now. So I'm not quite sure how I would describe it, because they do want to make it a deployment tool. They do want to make it everything else. Okay, include Aspire in API. But you see there, I didn't have to add, I didn't have the module to add, right? In Liquid Sky, I have to add games and I have to add anything else. I keep hitting commit and push, but I don't have a push to go to yet. So yeah, there's a lot there. So now database. One of the things that Aspire does give me out of the box is the ability to configure a database for working with. So I don't have to set one up and run it elsewhere. Why don't you default to that? Apache Tomcat for Java. Maybe that's what it's based on. I think I do that after watching Mr. Anhorn. You vertically align everything, right? Is that where I've got that style from? I just kind of prefer it now, just doing that. For more like breaking things out like that rather than having them right across the page. But yeah, the intention is from this to be able to deploy to Kubernetes and stuff. So it is worth keeping an eye on. Actually, keeping an eye on. Talking of keeping an eye on. Yeah, they're all on the older version of things. So let's upgrade them and get them all updated. See, it includes open telemetry, it includes logging, etc. So all those things are built in there now, and it's fine. Radio Patrick, hello, how you doing? Right now, I am working on a palette cleanser. I'm working on building a small modular monolith to experiment with how I would do it. It's C# here for everything. Why should I figure out and configure my formatting? Let's just let the tool do it. Yep. Include Aspire. Oh no. What did I just do there? Extensions. Include service defaults. Update. Keep hitting it. The good old monolith. Well, I'm trying to experiment with how the concept of a modular monolith comes about, right? How we build those things in .NET. I'm not looking at anyone's examples. I'm not looking at anyone's tutorials on how to do this. How would I build Liquid Sky? So basically, in my API project, I've added add games module and use games API, right? And in games, I've defined this. Um, yes. Um, the stars definitely aligned on that one, Roger. So in here, I have my endpoint for registering a game. Use a C# project per class. Majority speak. Imagine that. So again, I'm breaking up this module. Games is a module. That's how I'm considering it. And that is then included into my application via add games module, use games API, right? If we have extra configuration we need to pass in, if we have anything else, we can do that here. But right now, this is independent of everything else. So what I'm going to experiment with now is adding a database. So we're going to set up Postgre in Aspire. We need to add the reference though. Manage NuGet packages. Aspire dot. Probably an implicit reference. Let's do that. Mr. Jones, good afternoon. These are not the tech stack you're looking for. I don't know where my glasses wipe is. I had like 5 cloths for my glasses, and all of a sudden I've got 0. Let's add that. So now we should add Postgres. I've got a pretty sweet module 2 in Miniscript a good year or so ago, and I've been rotating it through languages ever since. It's now become a nice dashboard at work. Nice. How's the job going? You enjoying yourself still? Wait, little fly. Dot add database. Get out of it. Games. Interesting. games. That's awesome. That's what he's wanting me to say everything to. It's like games. So a name, SwitchUp, a username. This fly is just not wanting to give up. So hold on, that's a yeah. SwitchUp games. No, it doesn't want that one. What was that one then? Oh, a parameter resource. Not a string. Actually, those can be null. Let's do that. Yeah, it's failing here. Does it not introspect the dots of the method? Nope. That's with Copilot turned on, by the way. Picking up weight, lol. I'm not less confused and concerned by what I don't know, and I'm progressively becoming more confused and concerned by what I do know. Yep, that sounds about right for a job. Let me see. Edit settings. Model for completion is GPT-4 Copilot. Well, that's not useful. Okay, so if we do that, and then on here we do wait for, actually, is that going to be var games db? Can't do it. Oh, that's going to be Postgres. So var Postgres. And if we do wait for games database there, does that work? Yeah. Okay. So that should, oh, we want to do with PG web. And what else do I want there? There's something else I wanted there then. Let's see. Oh, I'll save the database. I'll add the volume mounts. And so I've got to keep the other window open because. Okay, so you see here. Oh. So we have the web. It's got the games DB. We can connect to the DB, right? Because it created that, then it created the database. So I can have multiple databases. Now, question: if you were building this, would you put everything in one database, or would you still isolate the databases? Coming back to Harishi's comment of a microservice can be solved with a join, right? That's kind of what triggered me down the path of the database. Is what I wanted to get to this piece. Do you create a different database, or do you create one database? And if so, why? You create one database. Okay, multiple schemas effectively separating. So one actual database with different schemas. Okay. What about contention on the database? Simpler while overcomplicate everything. Is it overcomplication if it's design? I'd isolate that by schema. Migration scripts to separate databases are easy to schema. By schema, at least in my experience. So the schema thing seems to be popular. I can count on one finger how many times I've seen schema used in work in 25 years. Well, schema seems to be the popular one these days. Also learning though that SQL and PostgreSQL described relational database is different. Some understanding of things may be off. Integrate architectural decisions to integrate multiple applications over one database because it's more efficient to move data via DB than making a REST round trip. Single DB IMO. Okay, so let's clarify. Database server, database. So we're saying that is the database, and then each one of these will use a schema. So this would be application database. So rather than creating separate databases, does that have a wait for? No. We use different schemas in the same database. Well, single DB is an exercise of moving from monolith to distributed. I'm building a modular monolith. Doesn't mean it has to become, it doesn't mean it has to start as a monolith. I can break it up, right? Having a service manage its own context and history means less to overlap with it with other. I probably am going to go EF migration. Oh, that is driving me nuts. So to the complication thing, it having a single database, single schema, single database, is risky if you're starting an application, because then if I build, if I build out a pricing module and it has a dependency on games, right? Like it needs to know about a game, right? No, I do not want to use cross joins. I don't want to use any. I want to use isolate. I want to isolate the data to the data it cares about. So pricing might have the concept of a game. It doesn't mean it's the same game table as the games database, or the games component, right? Or would it be? Would you design it that way? That's kind of why I'm doing this, is to explore some of these concepts and these ideas, because I feel that there's a lot of opinions on how to do this. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but what is the thing that I would do? How do I want to design this? I do believe in having isolated data. Then I find having a wall between the data makes it harder, so I'm shifting towards whole databases. In the same schema, that concerns me because that database is managed. The schemas internally are not. They're not. I don't know about the isolation of them. In terms of performance. So if you have many schemas under a single database, what does that do to performance if one of them is being hit particularly hard? Does it get managed correctly? Is it essentially isolated and just kind of a namespace database underneath a label? That I haven't had experience of, because again, I haven't used schemas in production. Everything I've used ever, when I've used SQL Server for the last 20 years, has been DBL, right? The default schema. My leaning here is to create an individual database per module, right? But I am genuinely interested in reasons why I shouldn't do that. If there's any chance that you'd be restructuring, ads BRB. I don't know why the flag keeps coming at me. The bright light. Um, an own module, as much as I understand how you define module, would restrict your ability to pull one part of your application out when you actually need to scale it. So that goes into another realm of, how much do you design your code for what it could be versus, I mean, I know Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky is not a prime example of this. But how much do you plan your design around what it could be versus what it is now and what it needs to be now? Um, for the sake of this discussion, my target audience is a group of people who want to collect to track their game collection. So, published website could be tens of users, could be hundreds of users, could be tens of thousands of people. I have no idea how popular it would become. What this is highlighting for me is there's a lot of sentiment around both planning for what you might want to do with it, um, and designing the code that way. I've also thought as a module is something that you discover as a product evolves. However, I understand that enough planning up front can create some modules. I'm not trying to explore, I'm not trying to necessarily build out the modules and come up with a fine design. Moving them around does not concern me. I plan to separate the different domains as much as I can. So in case the requirements changing again, that in case the requirements change or the data amount is increasing, they'll probably replace it with a REST interface and pull out things from one. Yeah, I suppose our different backgrounds, our different experience goes into our approaches there. Um, I have learned through many years of pain that I'm not dealing with changing requirements. Like I'm building what you asked me to build now, and writing the code in a way that I'm comfortable tearing it apart if I need to. But you will incur the cost of tearing it apart if you change the requirements. You're working in a different format, so I can see how that would yeah. So you're erring on the side of they're going to change the requirements. So you're building your software based around that concept. Coffee is horrendous. Um, oh dear. Um, yeah. So if we go application DB and create schema, that gives us the ability to have one database and use the schema to separate the modules. If later on they become databases, there's not actually that much complexity. You're changing a connection string and migrating data out of a schema into a full database. I'm lazy when requirements are changing. I don't want to have that much effort, so I can chill more when I just do small changes and sell it as a big change to them. But you work, if I get it right, you're primarily in a consultancy, right? You're doing project work for clients. So yeah. Um, and I've only ever been salaried, so I've never done consultancy. So I've never, to me, a change of requirements, you know, yeah. um, sorry, my glasses are um, have the glasses right. They're just a smudge enough to bug me because of the light. Um, yeah. So when it comes to requirements gathering, Liquid Sky, I'm a big fan of asking questions up front. To one line's point, I'm not playing this out in the right way. Right. I'm trying to build something without actually a clear definition and saying, oh, how would you do it? Um I'm actually more likely to change the requirements on the fly doing it this way than, than I am if I go out and plan. You know what? Basically, I want to build this. I want to build this application out. It goes as far as it goes. Ultimately, the goal would be if I'm role playing it there, it would be I am a developer trying to create a site to help people track their games collection. They should be able to log into the application. They should see their games collection. They should be able to hook up their price charting API or whatever pricing method they have to pull the data in and match against their games collection. They should be able to track their consoles, their devices, serial numbers, etc., and keep an eye on the pricing of those as well. It is not a marketplace. It is not a sales site at this point. There's no plan of that. It is just a site for tracking games. So, yeah. So the question here would be like, in terms of this application now, if I go to build out my domain, you know, what is it? This seems like a very familiar conversation from many years ago. I remember having this conversation, and Mr. Anhorn probably will too. What is a game? I spent a long time on this one previously, because yeah, um, this is a fun one. What is a game? You remember this one at all? um, I know I spent a lot of time waffling about this when I was looking at game tracking several years ago. Um, um, yeah. So a game is well, what we consider a game is a is normally the title, right? So like Tomb Raider is a game, right? But that has nice. Um that has a platform and it has SKUs, right? Because there's copies of the game, right? I might have Tomb Raider 3 times. One's a limited edition, one's a collector's edition, and one's a playable edition. They have different SKUs, right? So is that the game or is that the game? Is the title and platform a game? What I decided with my game tracking library in its current form is that a game is a title and a platform. So when I say I have 1,700 games, I have 1,700 physical games. They might have I might have the same game on 4 platforms. I might have 5 copies of the game across multiple SKUs. There's all sorts of variety there. So an individual copy is a game, which seems like cheating when you own like 7 copies of Dr. Robotnik's. Oh no, not Sonic Spinball. For some reason, it seems to be a popular game that gets dumped in most Genesis collections. Um, so, so the question is, do I build a database per, or do I build it per schema? We're going to try the schema approach right this second with the migration. I'm going to do one database. I'm going to create a schema that way. Now, the question is, how do we do that? So let's do public int ID, public GUID identifier. I'm going my standard path there with identifier. I don't care. Public string title, public, this is an interesting one. Oh, you missed my beginning. The reason I'm doing this, by the way, is because I am mentally burnt out. I am not using Polumi. I dislike it very much so right this second. Maybe it's the way I've set it up. Maybe it's the way I've configured it. Documentation on it is very difficult to find. Figuring out how to get the Cloudflare tunnel back up using their latest version. Also, I can't update it. It doesn't seem to want to update past a certain version. Is required to send no. I don't think to do that. I don't think of putting keywords to the left. That sounds odd. Well, my entire Pulumi stuff, I want to delete and start again if I was going to do it. But right now, I'm not liking Pulumi. The documentation is poor, especially around Cloudflare. Cloudflare doesn't even have documentation properly on setting up Pulumi. There's 4 different versions that I've found of how to set up the Cloudflare tunnel. The method I was using, I couldn't recreate. It would not come back up. And their own Pulumi Cloudflare library just has no docs on how to set it up. It complains that it gives me a 403 because they've changed API key for token or something, but it doesn't give you the option to build a token or get a token. So yes. So that's why I'm doing this project, is to try and make sure that I'm at least continuing to enjoy development for right now. What would modify? Last updated. Let's go with that for the second. So yeah, that was my Pulumi nightmare. Entity framework core. Hey Joy, it's Coda. Hi Frank. Hello, how you doing? Right now I am experimenting with a modular monolith. I'm seeing what it would take to build out an application as modules, or so one API that includes the modules for the pieces it's using. This is a thought exercise right this second, using a domain I'm familiar with in concepts. So far what I've got is I've configured my application, and I've got an endpoint up and running so that when the API deploys, we can invoke that. So Liquid Sky, which is the main project I work on this stream, is a distributed monolith. It is lots of moving parts, lots of databases, lots of eventing, lots of messaging going on to keep things moving along. But what happens if I dump it all in one application and keep it as a module? Not planning on scaling it out, not planning on building this out as some vast distributed system, but what does it look like and how do I feel about it? Primarily doing it this way rather than so I have recently seen a method of doing this where all this goes under the folders here. And I think I've seen Milan do it that way. I won't know. I'm not trying to reference anyone else's anyone else's stuff for this. I'm just trying to do this off what I feel is a way of doing it, off snippets I've seen. Thank you for the follow, by the way. If you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, if you feel that I'm going in a bad direction, if you feel that you have a different experience here, please share. I'm not looking to say I know everything I'm doing here. I have been a developer for more than 5 minutes, so it's not completely new to me. But this way of building an application is not something I've done before. So I'm experimenting on stream. Yeah, my main project is just taking a little break for a few days while I figure out the deployment. I'm having some issues with those, with how to deploy, what to deploy, etc. Well, realistically, if I was doing this properly, I wouldn't have started in C sharp. I would have started in Rust because, there's nothing better. I'm just following, hoping to learn something through observation only. No, absolutely. There's no requirement to chat. There's no requirement. If you want to follow along, if you have any questions, there is a Discord if you want to follow up on stuff. And I will post this code. All this code will get posted to my TBD friends repo later. So as I tinker with it or as I play with it, then we have a reference to go off. So feel free. I have no expectation, but I just want to make sure that people know that it is not just about me writing code. If you want to ask questions, you are more than welcome to. The most optimized code is the code never written law. The only requirement is to learn something along the way. That's what we need to do. We need to continually learn and, again, question, is this the right design for me? Does this make sense to me? Do I feel comfortable maintaining this code? Right? We'll write code very differently. But can I change it? So let's go in here. Let's add contexts. That might be foreshadowing, but interesting. Actually, yeah, the context would be application DB context. IDB context options of application DB context options. Why do you not like that? Really? Oh, I'm thinking interfaces, and it's not. It's not an interface. Derp. Yeah. Okay. So there's our initial piece. Public DB set. I am likely to introduce. Please tell me I called that game. Yes. Games get set. This is where Copilot drives me crazy because I don't want to think ahead. I'm trying to think. Actually, we don't need set there. We just need get DB set game. There. And that's game. Entities game. There you go. Okay. Copilot's trying to rush ahead of me there. And that's not helpful. Oh, don't forget DB context, man. Dear. Okay. So let's do migrations. Now, this is going to be interesting to do. So I'd say this is actually a good Aspire test. Normally when you run a migration, it starts up your thing and creates it actually uses the database to do it. So if I go here and I do entity framework call add migration, migrations folder, startup project, there is no startup project. That's not going to let me do that. So this is why in developers.stream, we create a migration service, which when the application starts up, we include the migration service to do that. So the migrations don't live inside of there, but that now creates a problem from an organizational standpoint. How do I do clean migration? Well, no, Aspire can't. Let's validate that before I say no, like quite as strongly to do that. .NET Aspire migrations. So the way we did this in developers.stream is we actually have a service that starts up and we add all the migrations into it and it runs migrations. Initial project there. Create the migration service. Yeah, so we create a brand new service, a worker service called migration service. Yeah, so okay, so this is the way they suggest doing it. Ours was in program CS. It's okay. It'll be okay. Don't stress. So let's do now. I don't want to add a migration service for every single project. Do I? Or do I want to treat, I think it's a modular monolith. Do I want to treat the migration service the same way as so? Well, that's what I'm saying. Is basically if I create, and I think that's the way I did it in developers are streaming it. I'm deliberately not referencing it. I'm practicing at the same time. Application. Add new project. Actually, workers, services, source, services, migrations. Okay, creates an empty worker service. Okay. Oh, come on. So add service defaults, add open telemetry. So they create a worker service. Actually, they create a, yeah. Some interesting naming going on in this. S_activity source. This doesn't look like this is pulled from normal. Run migration async. Okay, here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to treat it the same way as the actual Thank you for not putting it in source directly. Well, because I created services folder. It still looks a bit funny, but services. I do like some separation, and some of this I'm thinking about how anybody watching it might be reading the code back and looking at the structure and understand, oh, there's the migrations, there's the thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and treat this in a similar way. So you can't actually run the migrations without, that's interesting. Run migration async, database migrate. I've got to be able to create the migrations. Oh, but the migration service will actually pose as the actual cause. Okay, I remember now. Yeah. So this will need Entity Framework Core. This will need Postgres. Yeah, it's been updated. Right. Service provider get required service. So we are going to have to configure the database in here, which is an interesting one. So this is going to reference service defaults and infrastructure. Yes. So I'm going to basically create a migration service which has games.infrastructure. Can I turn that label around? Label, text align. Rotate the box. If I could spell infrastructure. You mean that one? How do I rotate? Ugh. How do I rotate in here? Oh. Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you. So games infrastructure, right? So I'm going to include them in here the same way, and each one of them is going to have its own. Here's here's how to run my migration, right? That's my intent so far. So in here, I will build the migrations. This will understand whatever the migrations will get put in here, and we'll include the migrations as part of games infrastructure. That is my plan, and I'm sticking with it. Add service defaults. Builder.add app.use. I got to get used to that pattern. I really messed that up a lot. I either use or configure in the builder, and that's not the standard patterns. Because you add to the builder and then build the application from the builder, and then the app uses extra pieces. Okay, so this is just going to be a bit challenging in terms of how to do this part, right? The SQL Server adds, so we do tracing. That's an interesting way of doing that. Rambling Geek, thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate that. Okay, need to finish this up, but let's add the worker service for add the hosted service. We're going to call that, we're going to rename that migration service. So it's very obvious. Builder dot you add services dot add Postgre add take care, Mojo. Catch you later. Body context factory. So the concern here would be that this is application. This is where it gets interesting. So now, this isn't going to hurt me right this second to do this, right? But this is where those namings are going to hurt because, yeah. Configure, use post. Reference, manage. Let's go into your framework call on PostgreSQL. Let's try to get this part wired up first. And yes, I do realize that I could go to services, add DB context pool, op.use npg SQL. Okay. I could go to Liquid Sky, not Liquid Sky. Developers.stream, but I'm trying to do this to, yes, I am running out of time. Add DB context pool. Am I using the wrong library? No, npg SQL entity framework core. It's the right thing. DB context pooling. Use npg SQL. I wish they'd be consistent. Okay, that's fine. And that needs connection strings. This is where that gets interesting. Why not use MS SQL? Cost. I really do have to think about the cost, and also the availability. Postgres. If I decide to deploy this, MS SQL does cost more. Even in Azure, it still costs. If I'm using, I mean, the free tiers are free tiers, but yeah, it's not free if I deploy it and I actually want to use it, because you only get a certain amount of stuff for free. For this, it might be fine, but still, Postgre is something I need to practice more of. There's also lots more open options for Postgre. Yeah, only the low tiers. It's the same thing with developers.stream. I can't deploy to the free tiers on Azure because I'll just run out of. If anyone actually uses it, I can't. It will shut it down quickly. There isn't enough free resources there to use. So I'm just trying to get into the habit of working with Postgre more than SQL Server. Liquid Sky is still on SQL Server, but if I make that commercial, I've got a licensing problem. So I might have to switch Liquid Sky over to Postgre for the cost. But yeah, so far, based upon estimations, developers.stream will look to at least cost about $90 a month to run. So that's with Postgre, not long, not this. So anyway, okay. So if anyone is interested in this right now as it stands, please let me know. You can ping in Discord if you want to see this code. I'm going to continue tinkering with this over the next couple of days while I get my brain around deployment. But thank you to some random timing at the beginning of the stream. One line delayed the ads, so I've got a second to think about this. Anna is writing her writer's web platform. I think that project is a school project, so we're going to do that. Don't forget, if you do like .NET content, I highly recommend checking out OneLine. OneLine is a .NET streamer who streams his work stuff Wednesdays through Fridays, or Wednesdays and Thursdays, and on Fridays hosts a community day where people are able to jump into Discord if they choose to, or just randomly, have conversations in chat about all things technology. Oftentimes of late, it's gone to AI. Wasn't able to attend due to meetings last week. Hopefully this week is a bit quieter. But yeah, so I would highly recommend checking that out. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to continue on with this process, getting the database in there, getting the migrations run, and then we'll start building out some components and some API endpoints. I think the structure's there, though. I think it's getting there. So we're going to go raid Anna. Anna is a .NET developer as well. She is building her app on stream. Lots of complicated stuff, but lots of fun stuff as well. So thank you for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. See you again soon. Good luck with life. Thank you, maybe. Take care all. Bye. The end.